Bonjour. And I'm not quite sure what's going to happen today because it's a ramble, what I believe is in YouTube terms called a Ramble Chat. So I'm going to share my screen and just start with a little introduction, including the sound. There we go, remembering everything I need to do. Okay. Pop-ups can be so annoying when you're trying to concentrate. And there we are. Almost there. So welcome back to French Country Journal, also known as Frugal French Farmhouse, and I'll chat a little bit about that during the course of today's video. Subtitle for today, Ruth's Reflections, and that term that I've just learnt in the last week, which is a ramble chat. Some of my family would say I do that all the time, actually. It's one of my special skills, so we'll see about that as we go along. So welcome to some time away from a busy day, time for a chat. So here we go. Right, there we are. I'm going to now stop sharing my screen and chat. I do have some notes, which I will refer to for some of the time as we do it. And really, it's reflections on the year. It's reflections on the challenges that we've had since we've started the YouTube channel. There are my brief notes that you can see there. I shall keep coming back to them as we talk, but I think it's better if you see me and not my notes. So let's go back to that. If I can work out how to do that on Teams. Okay, that didn't work very well. We'll just try again. That's better. Okay, so today in the central France, it's a dreadful day. We woke up to sleet. It's raining again. Yesterday, I went off to one of my groups where I meet some French people and try to improve my oral, written and spoken French. And as we walk to the car, it squelches. It squelches all the time. The water table must be so near the surface that there is nowhere for the rain to actually run into or run off. When Nigel went into town to the Brico Marché, he said that there's pretty much water running over the top of the ditches that we have at the side of the road and pooling up at the side of the road, and it's a washout. However, we're forecasted to have sun, I believe, from Sunday for at least 5 days. So I'm living in hope. I'm also aware that there are parts of the world at the moment that would love this amount of rain. Thinking about the dreadful things that are going on in California and countries where they really are hoping for rain. I think in some parts of Australia as well. It's pretty dreadful. So it's not too bad here. We complain about it because around last February, I start to think, spring's in the air. We're going to be able to be outside more of the time. And we had the most dreadful, dreadful summer that I can remember here. It rained and it rained and it was dull and it was cloudy. And we had about 6 weeks from the middle of July through to the end of August where we actually did have what you would call summer weather, and then it rained again, and it really hasn't stopped raining apart from the odd day. I'm going to have a drink now. I'm all ready for today. I've got dressed up as if I'm here for work today. And I put my thick cardi on because it's cold, and I've got a drink of kombucha. So I'm going to have a drink of that. I'm assuring you all that there is absolutely nothing alcoholic, although it looks as though there might be from the glass. There we are. Just needed to take a quick drink for my voice. So what to share with you today? A little bit about our experience with the channel over the last year. What's gone okay, what we wish may have been a little bit different. So have a little look at that. There we are. Just my notes here say to tell you all about the well. I haven't looked down the well yet, but I think it's pretty full, the well in the garden. And inspiration, we're having, with the wet weather, a bit of a situation with mice. And we know that there's either a pine marten or a stone marten likes to come and invade the roof space over the bedroom. And it's been tap dancing for the last few days in the middle of the night. So we know that the wildlife is trying to get into the house to escape the wet weather. Having said that, it wasn't as cold on Tuesday and Wednesday this week. And Sybil, the cat, who you know very well if you tune into the channel quite often, has been out more in recent days. Not today. She's very much here in front of the wood-burning stove today. I don't think she's going out anywhere. So, one of my day jobs that I have is writing. And I do ghostwriting. I can't tell you who I do ghostwriting for. It's certainly not very high profile, but I write what you would call, in France, it's called eau de rose, which means rose water, which means light romance. And that's what I write and make something of an income from. And I write about the period in England that was called Regency. So we're talking about Jane Austen and life and times of Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. So I write very light and frothy romance to a formula. And I didn't feel like doing that today. So here I am having this ramble chat with you all instead. And basically reflecting a lot this week on our channel and whether to continue or not. What I would say is that we changed the title of the channel in the autumn. Why, you might ask? Mainly because with having a day job as a writer and having a day job as a speech and language therapist for part of every week, it was proving very difficult to come up with all the ideas and make things exciting with the frugal living tips. And I felt, and Nigel as well, that we really weren't doing a very good job with that. So what we did was to think of it much more, what can we do that fits much more with what we do every week, and a journal idea, lifestyle journal, what we're doing anyway, maybe what we're cooking, what we're doing in the garden. And then, of course, this week I decided to return to one of the videos we started last spring on essential oils and scented fragrance products, and that very clearly was a frugal idea. What we're trying to do is be a little bit more consistent with what we're doing with the channel, but we also know that the viewers like to have that bit of variety. Why would we think about continuing or not? It's a lot of work for busy people who are doing other work, other jobs. The upside is meeting people. Okay, it's through a quick chat, but you start to feel that there are people out there who are interested, maybe live the same sort of lifestyle or would like to live the same sort of lifestyle, finding out who is out there, and what we do. So that's where we've been with it. the difficulty that I think we had is that as the summer came in and workloads strangely were much greater over the summer, I was doing a lot more training courses for others over the summer. It became more and more difficult to keep up with the videos. And to be honest, after the very first video, we didn't get the views. We had a very, very successful first video, and then after that it was decreasing, tailing off, and people weren't tuning in, watching the video. There's something, I think, it's called the YouTube algorithm, and I've been doing some looking at that this week, and we certainly weren't hitting the YouTube algorithm in a way that promoted the channel in any way at all. So what do you do? A lot of work, there's no income comes from it. Where do you go with it? I think we have some regrets that if we'd kept going with it over the last 6-7 months, we would probably have been creeping towards what's called monetization of the channel. So we might then have got some money from adverts, from something called AdSense. Again, I've been reading a lot about that this week. We've realized that if we don't increase the number of subscribers and the number of viewing hours by the second week in March, that the clock resets. So every viewing hour, every subscription that linked to that very, very first video gets wiped off the slate. And after that, I don't think there's any hope of ever monetizing it. So we're going to try over the next few weeks to put in some videos, different subjects, things that we think might be interesting to people. The weather's so awful, I don't think there's very much going on outside. So we've got that little bit more time. We're not confident. I know everybody should always be really confident and positive, but actually I'm not confident. I think it's too much to achieve in a 6-7 week period. Basically, we should find about another 100 subscribers to take that up to 1,000, and we should also find about 1,300 extra viewing hours. It probably isn't going to happen, but that doesn't mean that we don't try. That French verb, espère. Yeah, j'espère que we're going to try. So what are we thinking of putting out as videos over the next few weeks? Well, we've put a little bit of a quiz on the community page and had some response there. Have our videos been too broad? Was there too much in the videos? Should we have concentrated more on the renovations? We don't live in a ruin. I think it's easier to do a renovation if you live in a house where you really are starting from that ruin stage and moving up. What we've done, quite a bit of hard work on renovating the gîte, probably is much more putting a bit of plaster in a wall, redoing the ceiling. It's heavy decoration and making something from quite a poor state into quite an attractive place to be in. We now have a second bedroom, which we call the gîte. That's good. Or, what do we go? So far, nobody's shown any interest in looking at that. But what's great is that, people, you'd like to know more about Sybil, postcards from Sybil the cat, stories of the herb garden, which is my passion, herbs, growing herbs, gardening herbs, remedies for herbs. I thought this morning we did a lot of growing cut flowers and herbs for our daughter's wedding just over 2 years ago, and we could do some reminiscing about the herb wedding that happened. People, you've said you'd be interested in more farmhouse kitchen recipes, so we're on that over the weekend, looking at those frugal recipes that we know and enjoy here. We have a story around the hedge that surrounds the property. Around, could be 4 years now. It certainly was January, a very sunny January. Where we had some warm days. The farmer, Philippe, who owns the field next to our house, suddenly decided randomly that he would cut down our hedge. It's a shared hedge, which included cutting down 2 rather beautiful, tall, old oak trees as well. Within 2 or 3 days, he'd pretty much cleared everything. We managed to save the very tall oak tree, mainly because he would have needed it to fall onto our ground, our land, and we said no. He said it might fall over, it might be dangerous, but actually that didn't seem to be his primary agenda. So since that point, we had quite a difficult, traumatic time where we had hardly any hedge, any boundary at all. The beautiful canopy of the oak trees had disappeared, and that's when we started to plant trees. Willows, hazel, false acacia, wild cherry, quite a few wild cherry in there, mostly deciduous, but some other trees as well. Eucalyptus as evergreen, that's gone in there as well, and other birch trees, you name it, we've probably planted it in there. Laurel, eucalyptus for the evergreens, so they're in there, and we have created a hedge which gives us rather a nice barrier, and will grow into trees and a wildlife hedge for the future. So I'm thinking of sharing some of that with you as well. As far as the recipes go, my first cooking inspiration, let me put us back because it'd be nice if you could see my face again. My first inspiration was Marguerite Patton and her cookery book. I think that's apart from a children's book called Look, I Can Cook, which I got when I was about 6 or 7, but I used Marguerite Patton. Delia Smith and her main cookbook, Go To All the Time, and Cranks, and then increasingly recipes that we find on the internet. I have several books by Nigel Slater, and love listening to Nigel Slater on either audio or reading. I love the fact that he calls himself a writer that cooks. That's the lovely description. But the book that we're probably going to use most of the recipes for, I've brought over to show you, and I'll hold up to the screen now, is this one, which is one of my first memories, probably from those days when you were at home from school feeling sick, and I would watch television, and inevitably there was a programme, Yorkshire television, called Farmhouse Kitchen. It's brilliant now that I've got my own small farmhouse kitchen here at Champ de la Grange. So the complete farmhouse kitchen cookbook. My original one fell apart, so I bought a new second-hand used version of it last year. So, you know, it's no longer falling apart. I think the first cook that I remember presenting was Dorothy Slightholme, and then that changed to Grace Mulligan. So those 2 cooks were very inspirational, and lots of women's institutes from right across the United Kingdom would send in recipes. And I think if I open it up now, there'll probably inevitably be a recipe from somebody here. Yeah. I've opened it at the fish page, which I don't use, which is strange, but we've got savoury kippers here from a Mrs. Joan Ireland in West Suffolk. So people sent in their recipes. There's one from, there we go, let's see, fruit flan. There we are. Bakewell pudding, which is a very famous pudding in England, and that's from a Jan Wilson in Yulegrave, actually in Derbyshire. So Bakewell, the town in Derbyshire, with its very famous pudding. I can't see one from a Women's Institute, but I know that there are many, many in here. There we are. Grandma's 1, 2, 3, 4 buns from Miss Butterworth in Leeds. So people from right across the country would send in recipes. There's another West Yorkshire, my home county of Yorkshire. Honey Raisin Loaf by Renee Rouston of Kippax in West Yorkshire. So there we go. It's absolutely full of not only recipes. I'm randomly looking through it here, and I'm on the page of light and sweet mead. So if I feel like brewing some Vin Santo in the summer and autumn, I've got those recipes in here. But there are a few recipes like Panhaggerty and Norfolk rusks, which definitely come from that book. And we're certainly on with sharing those with you. So I think I've rambled on this reflective chat for long enough. So I'm going to stop doing that now. I'm going to share the screen again. There we are. And just put the goodbye slides up because I know they're there and it seems like the thing to do. Before we go, I didn't put this in the video, but it does feel like a lovely thing to look forward to spring. So always inspirational. This week I've been doing videos on cleaning products, but sometimes we need to forget about spring cleaning. So I'll just read this extract from The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame out to you before I say goodbye. So the mole had been working very hard all the morning, spring cleaning his little home. First with brooms, then with dusters, then on ladders and steps and chairs, with a brush and a pail of whitewash, till he had dust in his throat and eyes, and splashes of whitewash all over his black fur, and an aching back and weary arms. Spring was moving in the air above, and in the earth below, and around him, penetrating even his dark and lowly little house with its spirit of divine discontent and longing. It was small wonder then that he suddenly flung down his brush on the floor and said, "Bother," and "Oh, blow," and also "Hang spring cleaning," and bolted out of the house without even waiting to put on his coat. So there's an extract from The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame, which I absolutely love, and I'm hoping that we can have some sunny days next week and I can similarly bolt out of the house and look what's happening in the garden. So au revoir. Until next time, à la prochaine. Okay, see you next time.